Welcome to The Business of You, the show that empowers you to put yourself out there and build your personal brand. I'm your host, Michelle Griffin, helping you each week with expert tips, inspiring stories, and personalized coaching so you can master your reputation and build your future, showing up as the brand and business of you. I'm excited you're here. Now let's get going with today's show. All right, everyone, welcome to another edition of The Business of You. I'm super excited. This person, my guest here, is amazing, and she is actually someone I have followed and I guess known on LinkedIn for about a year now. So welcome to the show, Ariel Lee.
Thank you so much for having me, Michelle. I'm so excited that this worked out with our schedules. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, because she was actually going to be on the show, the LinkedIn live version, I guess, in the summer, but we had some scheduling issues. So it's always good. Second time around. This is part of our how I did this, how I built my personal brand on LinkedIn, because Ariel and I guess I met you a year ago. I think there was some kind of like webinar we were on with like the Gravy team. I can't remember what that was called. Do you remember that? I think that's how I got to know you and we connected, and wow, look at you a year later. So for all those people who want to get on LinkedIn, especially at the beginning of the year, how do I do it? What do I say? You're the perfect example, almost like you go against what everyone else says and look at the success. So let's talk about you getting out there, a little bit about your backstory, and then we can dive into some questions there.
Sure. So it's so funny. I always tell people that the biggest hurdle that I had to overcome when getting started was like, I so firmly believe that comments are the key to my success and most people's success. But what was holding me back, I'm literally the person that on Facebook, if you're showing up in my people you may know, I'm not going to send you a friend request because I'm going to assume that if you wanted to be my friend, you would have already asked me, so I'm more like a sit back and let other people come to me kind of person. And on LinkedIn, the key is finding content from second degree connections as far as how you expand your network. Find content that you find engaging from your second degree connections, leave a meaningful comment, and then send them a connection request. And for weeks, I'm scrolling my feed and I'm like, this person doesn't know me. They're not going to care what I have to say. And so I really held myself back from commenting on strangers' posts. And then the more time that you spend on LinkedIn, the more it becomes apparent that like this whole thing is just based on the visibility, right? And so by leaving comments for other people, nobody is going to wrinkle their nose and say, who the heck is Ariel Lee? Why is she commenting on my stuff? They're going to be appreciative and thankful because the comment not only spreads their content to more of their network, but it also exposes their content to your network. So that was the hurdle, that mental block of like, who am I? Nobody cares what I have to say, whatever. But so in terms of background, I started a new career in January of 2020, but it's the type of career that kept me from really dealing with clients for a few months because there are tests and certifications and things that you have to take. So by the time I was ready to start talking to people, it was May, which was like right in the middle of the pandemic. And my industry is usually heavily based on face-to-face networking or face-to-face contacts. And none of that was an option. And so I turned to LinkedIn just like, okay, well, I have to figure something out. And I did LinkedIn for a few months the way that I think most people are taught to do LinkedIn, where they're kind of sharing the articles from their employer. They're being very buttoned up and perfectly polished and professional and boring, for lack of a better word. And I was sending out direct messages to the, maybe 20% of people that were accepting my connection request and talking for an entire paragraph about myself and what I did and, all of this kind of stuff. And then asking for a quick 15-minute Zoom call that I hadn't earned. And after about a month or two of this, where I'm racking my brain, like, why don't these people want to talk to me? Finally, the light bulb went off that it wasn't me that they didn't want to talk to. It was this canned, perfectly polished professional persona that was not even remotely similar to me. And so that's when I shifted gears and just decided that I was going to begin to show up on LinkedIn the exact way that I would show up at an in-person networking event, which would be with a glass of wine in my hand. If it was after 5 o'clock, like I would be loud and boisterous and laughing. And that just completely changed everything for me. So
basically you were showing up as yourself, like not the button up. Now, as you were saying this, you probably I would love, and maybe you've done this as a post, how hilarious would it be if you went back and found one of those, old canned Ariel DMs you sent someone to show how different compared to like one of your silliest, most engaging posts.
Oh my gosh. I see it all the time and I get so embarrassed about it, but when I send happy birthday messages to people. And so it's like literally anybody that I connected with summer of 2020 or, between like April and July, I think of 2020 was the time that I was doing things what I call now like kind of an icky way. And sometimes if it's somebody that I still feel like is active on LinkedIn, I'll be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And I don't think, I tell people that when I'm doing the LinkedIn coaching thing, it's like, nobody is offended by those messages. Like, it's not a terrible thing to introduce yourself and say, hey, this is what I do. But it's also going to fall in the sea of what the 100 other people who do what I do have sent them that week. And so it's just not memorable. There's nothing about it that stands out or is different in any way. And my great friend, David Breyer, if anybody out there is not following him, he's like a genius, but he says that different is better than better. And so you have to find whatever it is about you that is unique and special and try to find a way to highlight that.
And I think that's really what's helped you really just blow up all the good ways from last year in 2021, because it's refreshing, and, I've always said, we need more. I tell you that in our comments, like we need more of you. I think that was your comment the other day. I'm like, just keep showing up as you. And for so many people, and me included, because I'm super extroverted, but I'm really kind of private online. I want to peel back some more layers. That's kind of my goal for 2022. But there's so many, and I listened to your recent podcast episode with our friend Clint, and, he made the great point. There's the people who say, have this, do that. And then you come in a completely opposite camp. Like, I'm just showing up as me and talking about me. And you've gotten business that way, which is amazing, right? Your whole business is built on LinkedIn.
It is. It absolutely is. And I think the biggest message is just to say, do whatever you feel comfortable with and whatever you can enjoy. If you're someone that thrives on that kind of structure of, okay, I've got 3 content pillars, I'm going to stick to these and not deviate from it, and that floats your boat and you enjoy it, then that's totally fine. But like Clint, he actually said, he goes, I held myself back from posting for 6 months because I felt like I didn't have anything to say specifically about software sales or, whatever. And it's just, I so firmly believe that all business is relationship based. I don't care if you're a product business or a service business. I'm 100% of the time, if I need to make a purchase on anything, when I have a choice, like unfortunately, in my area, my cable company is the only cable company I have the option of. So I don't really explore that too much, but literally anything else, I'm going to go to LinkedIn and I'm going to search and see who I know in my network. And at that point, once there's a personal connection, I'm not shopping for the best price or, it just is life-changing when you can develop a personal relationship with people. And I feel like it's more important to do that.
Well, because you're familiar and they can trust you and they like you, that whole cliche thing. Well, I think, what you say is great. There's that whole camp on LinkedIn, have the content pillars. And if that floats your boat, you get in business, there's no judgment. And that's the thing I always say. And I did lighten up from last year. I was like, post every day. And now the 365 challenge I have, it's like, just post and comment, I learned a lot, right? But you've done such a phenomenal job, but I have to say, you do something probably better than anyone on LinkedIn. especially last year, I'd pull up my feed. There's 50 comments from Ariel here. You were like, had this secret sauce, and you told me that's your secret sauce, but you must have had 100 comments a day. I mean, that's probably not in addition to your personality and your personable posts, but you also layered it with the comments, right? That's what really helped, wouldn't you say?
100%. And I think I always joke, I'm like, I don't know if it's algorithm or karma or a little bit of both, but it's just when people see you as an active and contributing member of the platform, they're more likely to engage with you because they know that you're going to engage back. There are certain people that they create great content. It's very well thought out. They are experts in their field, and they're probably fantastic people, but they very clearly don't prioritize relationships at the same level that I do. And so if I've left a comment for someone 2 or 3 times on 2 or 3 different posts and gotten no response, I don't comment on those people's stuff anymore. Not because it's not good stuff, but because the literal only reason that I show up on LinkedIn is to develop relationships with people. And so if I'm not furthering that relationship by leaving a comment, if I'm not making a new friend or a new potential client or both, then there's no reason for me to spend my time to do that. It's just not worth the effort.
It's so refreshing, Ariel. I mean, I'm such a big proponent of connection and community. It's like my core values, I pull up LinkedIn every single day because it's people I love and adore and support and all those things, and I know you're the same way. I'm not commenting on weekends now after my challenge, and it's been great, but I still pull it up every day because supporting and being, a human on LinkedIn that's what you do. And, and then like you, everything comes naturally after that. When you show up as a person, that's why I do personal branding, is because it humanizes and personalizes. And you're such a great example of, you don't have to talk about the business you work in. And I know you can't because of the industry you're in, but another thing that's led to for you is your LinkedIn side coaching thing, right? So that was a nice little bonus. So tell us how that evolved a little bit. I know you talked about it in Clint's podcast, so I don't want to overdo it, but tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it's really funny. It's, and I mentioned this to him, but there's so many people on LinkedIn that develop a quote unquote side hustle and that they want to take it to their full-time thing. And that could not be further from the truth for what I do. The only reason that I do LinkedIn coaching at all was just because there were a lot of people reaching out for me for my advice, for my opinions, and for my strategies and all this kind of stuff. And which was hilarious to me in the beginning because I was, and I almost put this on your show notes in the beginning, like I literally tripped into this by accident. There was never an initiative or any sort of like, oh, I'm going to go big on LinkedIn or I'm going to develop this personal brand. It was never anything like that. It just happened very organically, but totally accidentally. And I think that, and people started reaching out. It's wild. I really only started getting heavily involved in like October of 2020. And starting mid-December, so 2 months, people were reaching out to me asking for help. And I, for months and months, I took calls and I had Zooms with people and I, helped as much as I could for absolutely free, which was totally fine. I'm a big believer in karma. And I think that has a lot to do. Like the more that I can do to lift up and support the people around me, the better. But as time went on, I had to protect my time, basically, for lack of a better word. And I was getting kind of overrun with requests for help. And most of the people that I was talking to were not necessarily implementing the strategies or advice that I was given. And so it just sort of dawned on me that people don't really value free advice. So let's put just a small paywall in front of it and see what happens. And I still don't do much of it. It's not something that I'm like aggressively trying to grow at all. It's just a easy way for if somebody asks for my time, I can say, I have these options here, or I have a pre-recorded video that's like a strategy session that I sell. So that's how the LinkedIn coaching developed. It was not a hope and a dream of something I would get into. It's just something that sort of fell into my lap.
Well, that's why they call you the LinkedIn unicorn, right? That's literally your emoji. And if you need to find her, if Ariel and a unicorn shows up, that is the Ariel we're talking about here. So you guys have to go look her up. We're going to put her link in the show notes so you can follow her content. She is an example, as I mentioned, that I actually tell people, go follow Ariel. She's exactly how you want to be if you want to have some personality, be personable. And yet the twist is she never talks about what she does, just being a good human. That's a theme I'm really coming out here, just being a good human, giving. I mean, I remember the Zoom parties you had all that free advice a year ago, all last spring. And I think it was like March or April where you started paying for it, which is probably a good thing. You were giving away a lot of information. But then again, I noticed, I think on Clint's thing, you went fast within a year. You're almost at 30,000. Last year, what did you say? You started at 2,500. Now you're almost at 30,000 in less than a year. So, I mean, is that just magic unicorn dust, or what else do you contribute to it?
I guess so. I really wish that I knew, because it was like a switch flipped overnight. And you can see, like, I go to my Shield data sometimes and I date it back to January 1st of 2021 and just see the follower chart.
Yep.
But some kind of switch flipped in June. I had 7,000 followers at the beginning of June. So I went from 2,500 to 7,000, which I felt good about that kind of growth. And so in 6 months had picked up about 4,500 people. And then it went from there to whatever it is now. And I have absolutely no idea what to attribute it to. I wish I could look back. I almost want to go John Asperian style nerdy on it and do some research, because it wasn't the creator mode switch. That wasn't it. But I will tell you, for anyone listening that is just oh, well, I can't do what she does because she's got 30,000 people. I was always so intensely proud of my engagement, my average number of comments and the conversations that I was starting with my content, because I felt like I had a really small but mighty network. I was very, very proud of that. My average engagement numbers all year last year never changed. So from 2,500 followers in January to 20 whatever thousand followers at the end of December, the average views, average comments, average likes, they remain the same. So anyone out there who's telling you that, followers is the end all be all measure of success is really just not the case, because it matters how many people you have actively engaging you in conversation, is the important part.
Your engagement rate is way off the charts, I'm sure, with all those comments, right? It's just a unicorn.
Well, the average, and it's so funny because I look back and I'll scroll past posts in the feed and almost all of them have more likes and reactions than comments. And mine are always the opposite. But I tell people, I'm never be too jealous of my comment count, because half of them are always me. So if you see 200, then 100 of them are me responding. But the engagement rate is, Shield calculates it as your likes and reactions plus comments divided by the views, I think. And that percentage usually averages between 3.5% to 4%.
Yeah, that's really good. So what the lessons for everyone listening, just to recap, show up, the irony is you weren't trying to build it just, it fell in your lap because you just decided this isn't working. I'm going to be me. I'm going to do this and I'm going to just give. And so I think those two are the secret, your unicorn status. I really do. And these are lessons learned. So say you want to just do your content pillars and all that. Well, then do that, but then also take Ariel's advice and just give, comment. When I work at clients' work and they're posting, they don't say anything. And it's usually because they're not participating. They're not being a giver. They're not doing anything. You have to, especially when you're just getting on, give more than you're ever going to hope to get back there. And it will come back to you. And you were totally like this. And are you think in 2022, are you able to comment as much this year as you were last year?
So I'm a little frustrated with my dear sweet LinkedIn right now. A big part of my commenting strategy was a bookmark system that I'd always used. So instead of just sort of randomly willy-nilly popping comments wherever, I had identified just through scrolling the feed and getting to know people. I had bookmarked, which is not a LinkedIn thing. I did it in Google Chrome, and I bookmarked the activity feed of friends, people that I definitely wanted to support, ideal clients, people that I definitely wanted to do business with, and then other LinkedIn experts that could teach me things. So those three types of people, and I joke that they're not mutually exclusive categories. Like obviously the best people are all three put together. But anyway, I would bookmark their activity feed and once or twice a day check to see if they'd posted anything new that day that I could engage in. So it was a very, I don't want to use the word targeted, but it was a very intentional engagement strategy to make sure that my name and my face was showing up in front of the people that I wanted to be showing up in front of. And then I would make time to scroll to try to find new people as well. LinkedIn last month rolled out a bell notification feature on people's profiles. I don't think everybody has it yet. But essentially, there's a little bell in the top right-hand corner of people's profiles. You should be able to click and say, notify me of all posts from this person. So I got all excited about that and deleted all of my bookmark folders. And my bell notifications have not been working for about a week and a half. So I have a support ticket open. But anyway, the key to that for anyone listening is just intentionality, to make sure that you're keeping up with the people who you really want to either turn into your best friends or turn into clients or whatever. Don't just find yourself endlessly scrolling. And I would say focus on people that you can build genuine relationships with. There's a lot of advice out there floating that say to only comment on influencers' content because that's going to get you a lot of extra views if you're the first comment on somebody with a huge following. And that's okay if you want to comment on somebody with a huge following, that's perfectly fine. But I don't think that should be the end all be all of your content strategy by any means. So
absolutely. I'm like you. I try to support people who are just getting on the platform, because I remember what it was like to just finally decide. So I want to be that supporter, that encourager. It's kind of my brand. So I'm always trying to do that too. And I know that's a big part of you, but the lessons you're giving to be a geek human on LinkedIn really turn around and help you, with your business. You can develop a side hustle, grow community, endless opportunities. So before we, close out the show, I usually ask the 3 tips, and you can even make the 3 tips a good, what to do, what not to do. If someone was just wanting to be, on LinkedIn and, either for fun or for a reason, tell us what your best 3 tips are.
Oh my goodness. And I know I sent these to you ahead of time and I can't remember what they are. So that's a little bit of authenticity for you not being
I'm sure anything you would say would be 3 good tips or not to do. That's another thing. You could tell us what not to do.
Sure.
Too, so.
My primary thing is just to show up as exactly who you are. You want to make sure that people, are not surprised if they've interacted with you on LinkedIn and then you go to have a coffee date in person or you have a Zoom with them. They should be getting the same person. And so that's really important. And I think that if you can find a way to communicate who you are in quote, real life on this social media platform, then that's really the key, because there's a magnetism there where as long as you're reflecting your true self to the platform, then the people that resonate with that person are going to be magnetized to you. And if you're projecting the wrong type of person, if I was putting out some sort of perfectly polished professional image, Michelle would probably be really disappointed if I showed up in a sweatshirt like I have on right now. So just be yourself and the right people will magnet to you. The second thing I would say is probably to be social, that it is social media. Don't get caught up in the fact that it's a professional platform. We are all there for a reason. And, everybody has a job to do and a paycheck to make, right? But the ultimate goal has to be to make human connections with other people. And so I think that if you can sort of put your business objectives in the background, you don't walk up to people at an in-person networking event and immediately start talking about what you do for a living and what you can offer them. You probably start with something more casual, more social. So be social. And then third is just always, and I feel like people are going to get sick of hearing me say this, but that comments are really the secret. That don't get caught up in thinking that you have to really figure out and fine tune your content where, you think that you've got it perfect before you start posting, because one, it's never going to be perfect. But two, even if it is perfect, you can have the absolute best content in the world. But if you're not putting yourself out there in the comments, making yourself a frequent and friendly face, then nobody's going to see your content anyway, because when people do see it, they're not going to know and they're not going to engage with it. So focus on building a comment strategy and then just jump right into the content waters and put out, as long as there's a point to what you're sharing. So that just ask yourself, like, what could the reader get from this today? That's the important part.
Oh, that's such a good point, because I see some posts on LinkedIn, it's all about them. And after a while, people tune that out. And you strike the balance well, like you'll have something really kind of, personable, humanistic, but then you're like, there is a point. I mean, you string in the point, and that's where you can blend showing up as you, but then it's not all about you. So that's a great point to add there too. So good stuff, Ariel. So the takeaways here, guys, be a good human, put people first, show up as yourself and your content, even if you want to be more of the 3-pillar type or the personal type, but just commenting, warming up, give people a reason to know you. They're not going to really know you, or like you said, until you give them a reason to. And that's by showing up in a comment. And that's the easiest way. Oh my gosh, that is such an easy way to do comments. And your personality can really shine in a comment when you're kind of scared to post a little bit in a real post. Don't you think? I see your personality come through a lot in posts. I mean, on comments, all the emojis and all the things. So don't hold back in the comments. Well, before we go, I always like to ask everyone where they can find you. But before that, what's a professional or personable mantra that you just love to say that can help inspire people to start getting out there on LinkedIn?
I think what I usually go to, because I'm very stubborn, and if anybody tells me I can't do anything, is a Henry Ford quote that's, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I'm big on mindset, and just we all have all the tools that we need. Everybody complains about not having time to do LinkedIn or whatever. And so I think that that's probably my biggest personal and professional mantra is, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Absolutely. No, that's one of my favorites too. In my defense, I should have probably told you that.
No,
I'm sorry. I hate being put on the spot on podcasts. Like,
no, I don't care. Doesn't bother me at all. I'm happy to, if you guys follow me after this, you'll know I do not mind making a fool out of myself. So that goes perfectly
with the theme. Absolutely. But that's being said, tell us where we can find you, or your LinkedIn and your hashtag. If you want to share your website for your side biz, all those good things, tell us where we can find you more.
So I pretty much live on LinkedIn. My name is Ariel Lee, ArielLee, with the unicorn emoji. And my hashtag is #listen y'all. Just because that's something I found myself saying a lot in my content. And so when it came time to pick a customized hashtag, that's what I went with. I do own the URL to LinkedIn Ariel, and there's LinkedInAriel.com. And there's some information there, but I'm not really good about keeping up with it. So LinkedIn is by far the best place to find me. I'm super responsive, like very, you can DM me or text me. I'm very open to communication. A lot of people will send me a message and then be shocked when I reply back. And they're like, oh my God, I never thought you'd reply. I'm like, I'm 100% responsive as long as it's not a weirdo kind of message. So definitely happy to chat with anybody.
Yeah, definitely go check her out on how to, really do commenting and content that's just really personable. So is it Ariel Lee or Ariel J. Lee? Did you say that?
No, Ariel Lee. There is an Ariel J. Lee that actually works for my company. But really? He's not really big on LinkedIn. He doesn't have a unicorn. So,
okay. Yeah. Well, the unicorn is the giveaway. So, and then hopefully if LinkedIn audio shows up in a bigger way, you'll be on that, because I think another thing that really helped you get out there, you were in Clubhouse.
Yes, absolutely. Spent way too much time in Clubhouse.
We all did. We all did. Well, Ariel, we'll put all the show notes and all your stuff in the show notes. I just want to thank you. And here's a little backstory. Today was a Snowmageddon. Is that how you say it? Snowmageddon day. Yeah. And so like this is just an example of Ariel. So her post today is like, I got nothing, everything's snowed in. So ask me what you want, DM me, whatever. And I just like, oh, I can get her in the podcast today. Cause I love and it worked out. Cause like I said, back in the summer, we were supposed to do something. So that's just the kind of person Ariel is. She puts it out there and people respond. So use that as a motivation to be that way too. So Ariel, thank you for making time for me today. I sure appreciate it. And I am so excited to get this out in the next couple of weeks so everyone can hear all your goodness on LinkedIn and how to get out there.
Appreciate you. This was fantastic, Michelle. Thank you so much for your time today.
You are so welcome. Well, we'll see you next week on another episode of The Business of You. Thanks so much for tuning in. You know, we need more impactful professionals, entrepreneurs, and leaders just like you getting out there sharing your expertise. So if you'd like to know more about how I can help you or your team grow your professional personal brand, please check out yourbrandyourbusiness.com. And until next time, you have a brand to build, a message to share, and people to impact. Now go put yourself out there and watch the business of you grow.